Relics drifted into the kill box, exactly on schedule. High Executor Vylor watched them arrive on the primary hololith, their signatures resolving into blunt, armored silhouettes. No energy veins, no adaptive lattices, no harmonic shields, just mass. Crude, unapologetic mass, wrapped around reactor cores that radiated like badly muffled furnaces. A low ripple of amusement passed through the command tier. Human vessels confirmed, the sensor mind intoned. 67 hulls. Configuration suggests obsolete kinetics. No psionic integration detected. Vylor folded his upper limbs behind his ceremonial mantle. 67. Against a Council enforcement fleet of 10,312 ships, arrayed across 6 precision layers. The disparity was almost insulting. "So, these are the survivors," he said. "The species that refused processing." Several delegates leaned closer, eyes glittering with professional disdain. Humans had been a footnote for cycles, violent, territorial, technologically stalled. Their archives spoke of armor and recoil, of crews that lived inside their weapons like parasites instead of transcending flesh. "They are flying coffins," a tactician observed. "Primitive inertia frames. No phase displacement." Vylor allowed himself a thin smile. "Then let us be merciful. End it quickly." The human formation did not spread, did not seek flanking vectors or concealment. They advanced in a blunt wedge, distances closing from 400,000 kilometers to 300,000 without a single evasive burn. No hails. No ceremonial reply to the Council's ultimatum, already broadcast 3 times. "Arrogant," Vylor said. "Or ignorant." Targeting solutions bloomed across the display. Energy lances aligned, gravitic shears spun up. Enough firepower to strip continents. "Fire pattern Alpha," Vylor ordered. 10% yield, demonstrate inevitability." The fleet complied. Light crossed the void. Blue-white annihilation, coherent and perfect, converged on the lead human ships. The beams struck armor older than most Council species' written history. They did not punch through, they did not flare, they did not even splash. The energy vanished. Silence stretched for 0.8 seconds, long enough for the command tier to register. The anomaly, short enough to be dismissed as sensor lag. "Recalibrate," Vylor snapped. "Recalibration complete," the sensor mind replied, voice suddenly strained. Energy absorption detected. Estimated conversion loss, minimal. Numbers began to scroll. 2%, 2.3%, 2.6%. Vylor leaned forward. "Repeat that." "Human hulls are absorbing incoming energy," the mind said. "Dissipation through unknown locking mechanism. Residual heat negligible." A murmur rippled through the delegates, amusement replaced by irritation. This was not supposed to happen. Relics did not negate modern doctrine. "Increase to full yield," Vylor said. "Collapse," then by saturation. Again the fleet fired. Again, the beams died against dead metal and layered armor. The human ships continued forward, unhurried. Range closed to 250,000 kilometers. Still no evasive action. Still no return fire. "They are letting us shoot," someone whispered. Vylor felt the first flicker of unease, quickly smothered by doctrine. No defense was infinite. No system could absorb forever. "They will fail," he said. "Mass always fails." On the hololith, the human wedge tightened by 3 degrees. Formation discipline adjusted with machine precision. Engines burned brighter. Acceleration climbing past thresholds. Vylor knew those hulls should not survive. A single human transmission finally arrived, clean and unadorned. "This is Human Fleet Command. We will not comply. Timetable is active." Vylor stared at the closing distance counter as it ticked down another 10,000 kilometers. The relics were not retreating. They were advancing. Compliance was framed as mercy. High Executor Vylor ensured the wording was flawless. The ultimatum packet unfurled across all channels. Tight legal language, ancient authority seals, and the promise of leniency embedded like a blade wrapped in silk. "Human fleet," the proclamation began, amplified across vacuum and spectrum. "You are in violation of Council Transit Law, Armament Restriction Statute, and Species Containment Directive 14. Power down all reactors. Jettison weapons cores. Prepare for processing. Compliance window, 9 minutes. 9 minutes was generous. Excessively so. The delegates understood the message beneath the courtesy. Resist and be erased. Valor watched the timer appear on the hololith. 9, 8, 59, 8, 58. The human ships did not slow. Their wedge held steady, engines burning at a constant output that gnawed at Valor's patience. Range continued to collapse, now 220,000 kilometers. Still no return fire, still no panic maneuvers, just silent advance. They intend to bluff, a delegate said. They know they cannot win. Valor inclined his head. They know nothing. That is the tragedy of primitives. The Council fleet adjusted posture. Boarding craft spun up. Containment barges moved into rear position, holds empty and ready. Processing capacity for 20 million beings stood by, calibrated for a species known to resist sedation. The timer struck 7 Sagron. A response finally arrived. It was not routed through diplomatic channels. It came as a plain band transmission, unencrypted, narrow beam, originating from the center of the human formation. No insignia. No flourish, a single human voice spoke, level and unhurried. Galactic Council fleet, this is Human Fleet Command. Valor expected defiance, threats, posturing. What he heard instead was procedural calm. We acknowledge receipt of your ultimatum. We decline. No justification followed, no rhetoric, just refusal. Several delegates stiffened. Valor's mandibles tightened. Clarify, he ordered. The human voice continued, as if reading from a checklist. We do not recognize Council authority beyond your own borders. We will not disarm. We will not submit crews for processing. We will not be boarded. The timer read 6:12. This is not a negotiation, Valor snapped, leaning forward. You face total destruction. The reply came without pause. Understood. A fractional delay. Then, be advised, our operational timetable is active. First phase concludes in 6 hours. Civilian evacuation corridors are already marked. Recommend you clear non-combatants from your formations. The command tier erupted in noise, outrage, disbelief, sharp laughter edged with anger. They issue recommendations, a strategist scoffed. At this range. Valor raised a limb, silencing the chamber, his gaze locked on the human ships, now inside 200,000 kilometers. Acceleration profiles updated again, climbing past safe margins. You are outnumbered 100 to 1, Valor said, forcing control into his voice. You will be dismantled. The human answer was immediate, numbers acknowledged. Another pause. Deliberate. We plan accordingly. The channel closed. No threat followed. No promise of vengeance, just a statement of fact, delivered like a schedule update. The ultimatum timer reached 5. Valor stared at it, then at the advancing wedge, and felt something unfamiliar tighten in his core. They had not asked for mercy. They had not threatened, when they had simply said no, and kept coming. The first shots were meant to be instructional. High Executor Valor authorized full-spectrum fire with clinical confidence. Not a killing blow, yet, but a demonstration no sane opponent could misread. The Council fleet aligned in layered precision. 10,000 emitters synchronizing to a doctrine refined over centuries. Fire, Valor said. Energy crossed the void in disciplined silence. Lances, shears, and harmonic waves converged on the human vanguard at a range of 180,000 kilometers. Enough force to cleanse cities, enough to end this aberration cleanly. The beams struck. They disappeared. No flare, no scatter, no recoil shock. The human armor drank the light and left nothing behind. For half a second, no one spoke. Confirm impact, Valor ordered. Impact confirmed, the sensor mind replied. Its tone had changed. Energy transfer detected. No penetration. No spallation. No structural compromise. Numbers populated the hololith, updating faster than Valor could comfortably track. Absorption efficiency, 91.8%, 92.1%, 92.4%. Impossible, a delegate hissed. No system negates energy at that scale. Valor leaned closer, eyes fixed on the scrolling data. Where is it going? Converted, the mind answered. Dissipated across hull volume. Quantum-locked lattice prevents phase bleed. Heat. Sink saturation at 4%. 4%. The Council fleet fired again, instinct overriding doctrine. This time the yield climbed. 30%, then 60%. Beams overlapped, saturating the same impact zones, seeking any weakness through repetition. The humans did not maneuver. They did not deploy countermeasures. They absorbed it. 7%, 2.9%, 3.0%. A standalone line flashed across Vailor's display, auto-generated by the combat net. Energy, null effect. Silence broke into sharp fragments of sound, confusion, anger, rapid retasking orders colliding with each other. Switch frequencies. Overload them. Target reactors. Each adjustment was executed within seconds. Each failed. The human ships continued their approach, engines burning steadily, armor dark and unmarked. Range dropped to 160,000 kilometers. They should be molten, a tactician whispered. Vailor's confidence thinned, not into fear, but into irritation edged with something worse. Doctrine insisted this could not last. No system was perfect. No defense was infinite. Push to maximum yield, he ordered. Collapse their sinks. The fleet complied. Full output. Enough power to destabilize moons. The result was identical. Absorption efficiency peaked at 93.2%, then stabilized. A second standalone line appeared, colder than the first. No escalation path found. Vailor felt his mandibles tighten. Explain. The human armor is not blocking energy, the sensor mind said. It is refusing interaction. Incoming force is converted into inert mass energy and dispersed. There is no overload threshold detected within current parameters. The words landed with the weight of heresy. They are not defending, a delegate said slowly. They are invalidating the attack. Range, 140,000 kilometers. The human formation adjusted again, tightening by another degree. Acceleration ticked upward, mass moving with a certainty that made Vailor's inner membranes prickle. A realization crept through the command tier, unwelcome and corrosive. This was not luck, this was design. Vailor opened his mandibles to issue new orders. But the hololith updated first, new vectors, new emissions, signatures blooming from human hulls that had not fired a single shot yet. The relics had finished proving a point. Now they were ready to demonstrate the rest. Mass was supposed to be predictable. High Executor Vailor had built his career on that assumption. Every doctrine, every formation, every engagement simulation rested on the same foundation. Heavy ships paid for protection with inertia. They endured. They did not surge. The human fleet surged. Without warning, their engine profiles spiked. Not erratic, not desperate. Clean, synchronized thrust across all 67 hulls. Acceleration numbers climbed with mechanical indifference, crossing thresholds Vailor knew by instinct. 04C, 0.06C, 0.08C. They will tear themselves apart, a delegate said, almost hopeful. They did not. The human wedge tightened, ships sliding, into closer proximity with meter-perfect spacing. Structural stress indicators on the hololith remained green. No shear, no frame buckling. No crew-fatal inertia spikes. Range collapsed from 140,000 kilometers to 100,000 in under a minute. Impossible, Vailor said quietly. Council formations reacted late. Defensive layers attempted to peel back, creating depth, but the human acceleration invalidated the geometry. Interlocking fields meant nothing when the opponent refused to respect distance. Redeploy forward screen, Vailor ordered. Maintain spacing. The command went out. The execution lagged. Panic crept in at the edges of the fleet as ships began to maneuver independently, captains trying to buy space that no longer existed. Formation theory fractured under pressure. The humans kept coming. C sustained. The number sat on the display like an accusation. At this mass, at this armor density, such acceleration should have liquefied crews and snapped hulls like brittle bone. Instead, the ships rode the thrust as if mass itself had been negotiated away. A standalone line pulsed across Valor's console. They closed the distance. Range, 70,000 kilometers. Energy fire resumed in disorganized bursts. Less doctrine now, more instinct. The beams still vanished. The humans did not acknowledge them. They're ignoring us, a tactician said, voice tight. No, Valor replied. They are counting. The realization settled with cold clarity. The humans had not rushed. They had waited, absorbed, measured. Now they were executing a schedule built for this exact moment. Council ships attempted emergency micro-jumps, short-range displacements meant to reset distance. Several succeeded. More failed, jump windows collapsing under the human fleet's accelerating pressure. One cruiser miscalculated. It re-emerged directly in the path of a human capital ship. The human vessel did not deviate. The collision was brief and absolute. The Council cruiser ceased to exist, reduced to debris and expanding gas in less than a second. The human ship did not slow. Silence followed, heavy and stunned. Casualty? Valor demanded. Single loss, the sensor mind replied. Council, cruiser. Human hull integrity unchanged. Range dropped below 50,000 kilometers. Valor felt something shift inside the command tier. Not fear. Not yet, but the collapse of a certainty that had governed every prior engagement. They are using mass as a weapon, a delegate said. Yes, Valor answered. And time. The human formation adjusted once more, slight, precise. New emission signatures spooled up along their hulls. Kinetic ports, missile bays, systems that had waited patiently while energy doctrine failed. The distance was gone. The humans had crossed the line where theory ended and consequence began, and they had done it without haste. The next phase would not be instructional, it would be terminal. The first kinetic strike sounded like silence. High Executive Valor registered the launch indicators before his mind accepted what they meant. Along the flanks of the human ships, apertures irised open. Long, blunt structures with no energy bloom, no harmonic buildup. Just motion. Projectile weapons, a tactician said, disbelief sharpening his voice. They are deploying physical munitions. At this range, another demanded, against active screens? The answer arrived before Valor could speak. Railguns fired. Slugs crossed the remaining 48,000 kilometers in fractions of a second, accelerated to velocities that bent sensor models into uselessness. Council shields flared on instinct. They did. Nothing. The first impact tore through a forward cruiser wing as if it were vapor. Hulls ruptured, reactors breached. 5 ships vanished in a staggered line, destruction cascading faster than alarms could propagate. A standalone line burned onto the hololith. One salvo. Casualty counts spiked. Report, Valor snapped. Council losses confirmed, the sensor mind replied. Wing Delta 3 neutralized. 147 vessels destroyed in 3.2 seconds. Valor's mandibles clenched. That wing had been layered, shielded, reinforced against energy saturation. None of it mattered when confronted with momentum measured in relativistic fractions. The humans did not pause. Missile bays opened next, dozens per ship, then hundreds. The launches were staggered, timed, disciplined, no waste, no panic. Missiles bloomed outward, then corrected inward. Guidance systems adjusting with terrifying patience. They did not seek shield gaps, they sought mass concentrations. Counterfire, Valor ordered. All point defenses. The Council fleet responded, in fragments. Interceptors launched, energy webs snapped into place. It was not enough. Missiles detonated inside formations, not at the edges. Nuclear signatures flared, clean, contained, precisely calibrated. Shock waves overlapped. Ships folded, crushed by forces they had never been designed to resist. Entire flotillas ceased to exist. The hololith struggled to keep up, icons blinking out faster than the system could gray them. Casualty numbers climbed in brutal steps. 100 lost, 200.2 thousand. A second standalone line appeared, stark and final. Kinetics do not negotiate. Valor felt the command tier tilt, voices rising, orders colliding. Formation integrity was gone. Ships broke away, captains attempting to flee firing arcs that did not respect retreat. The humans advanced through the chaos, railguns cycling with metronomic regularity. Fire, recoil, reset. Every discharge removed another cluster from existence. They are pacing the destruction, a strategist said, horror leaking through professionalism. They could fire faster. Vailor understood then. This was not maximum output. This was controlled demolition. Range collapsed further, now inside 20,000 kilometers. Boarding distance. Execution distance. Council ships attempted surrender pings. Some powered down weapons. Others transmitted frantic compliance codes, desperate to be noticed. The human fleet did not alter fire patterns yet. Missiles struck a command carrier. Its core went critical. The blast tore a hole through 3 adjacent formations, vaporizing crews who never saw the human ships that killed them. Total losses, Vailor demanded. Council fleet casualties exceed 38%, the sensor mind replied. Engagement time since first kinetic fire, 11 minutes. 11 minutes. Vailor stared at the numbers, the vanished icons, the relentless forward motion of the human wedge. He searched for escalation paths, superweapons, last resort doctrines, anything. There were none left that mattered. The humans finally transmitted again. Same channel. Same calm voice. Kinetic phase proceeding as scheduled, it said. Ceasefire and disengage to designated corridors. Medical assistance will be provided to surrendered crews. Medical assistance. Vailor felt the weight of that word settle over the command tier, heavier than any threat. They were not exterminating the fleet. They were dismantling it, and they were doing it at a pace that allowed the survivors to understand exactly why resistance was over. The humans advanced through the wreckage, weapons still firing, but with narrowing scope, targets selected, intervals measured, destruction applied only where necessary. The battle had crossed a threshold. From this point forward, the outcome was no longer in doubt. Only the accounting remained. The firing slowed before it stopped. High Executor Vailor noticed the change with a mix of relief and dread. Human railguns cycled down. Missile launches ceased. The silence that followed was deliberate, imposed across a battlefield still burning with debris and ruptured hulls. A wideband transmission activated. This time it was not narrowbeam. It was not addressed only to the Council fleet. It spilled outward, riding civilian channels, trade relays, neutral observation posts, any receiver within several light hours. The human voice returned, unchanged by the scale of its audience. This is Human Fleet Command. Kinetic operations are paused. Vailor waited for the threat that should have followed. It did not come. You have engaged us under authority claims tied to forced compliance, biological processing, and involuntary labor conscription, the voice continued. We reject those claims. Visual data accompanied the words, not propaganda. Records.Council processing facilities. Crew manifests marked with cast codes. Transport holds calibrated for species-specific restraint. Legal clauses authorizing indefinite detention. These practices violate human law, the voice said. They violate human war doctrine. They violate our definition of civilization. The command tier was silent now. Even the most belligerent. Delegates watched the data unfold with rigid stillness. Some of it was familiar. Some of it had never been meant for outside eyes. You outnumbered us, the human continued, calm as a briefing officer. You believed that entitled you to obedience. It does not. Numbers appeared, overlaid on the wreckage map. Engagement. In duration, 17 minutes. Council fleet losses, 4,126 vessels disabled or destroyed. Human fleet losses, 0 civilian casualties, pending verification. The disparity was obscene. The restraint, more so. We do not fight for expansion, the human voice said. We do not fight for tribute. We fight to end systems that rely on slavery, coercion, and extermination to function. Vailor felt a cold pressure behind his eyes. This was not justification after the fact. This was explanation before the end. You will cease fire, the transmission went on. You will power down heavy weapons. You will disengage along the marked corridors. Medical teams are en route. Prisoners will be taken. They will be fed. They will be treated. They will stand trial. A pause. Measured. We do not execute surrendered crews. The words landed harder than any kinetic impact. Around Valor, delegates shifted. Some looked away. Others stared at the casualty counters, recalculating futures that no longer aligned with old certainties. Human fleet, Valor said, activating his channel despite himself. You presume authority you do not possess. The reply came immediately. We possess the authority of action, the human said, and the responsibility that follows. More data scrolled, evacuation vectors, time windows, safe zones plotted with surgical care, civilian extraction capacity. 20,000 within 6 hours. Medical triage ships already inbound. They planned this, a strategist whispered. Not just the battle, the aftermath. Yes, Valor said softly. He understood now. The humans had not arrived to win a fight. They had arrived to dismantle an idea. The transmission concluded without flourish. Compliance is no longer demanded, the human voice said. It is advised. The channel closed. Weapons remained silent. The wreckage drifted. Across the fleet, captains made decisions that would define the rest of their lives. For the first time since the humans appeared, the war was no longer about who could destroy more. It was about who would still be allowed to exist afterward. The trap had never been the battlefield. High Executor Valor realized it as the new contacts appeared, not emerging from hyperspace in chaos, but arriving on vectors, already cleared of debris, sliding into position with quiet certainty. Human transponders, dozens of them, blooming into existence exactly where the Council fleet had thinned itself trying to escape. They were already en route, a tactician said, voice hollow. Before first contact. Valor stared at the timestamps. Arrival synchronization margins measured in seconds, not minutes, seconds. The human voice returned, once more without heat. For the record, it said, this engagement began 14 days ago. Data unfurled across the hololith, overriding Council permissions as if they were suggestions. Trajectories, ghost signatures, layers upon layers of motion that had gone unnoticed because they were meant to. Decoy fleets, empty hulls broadcasting, human mass and drive signatures seeded along likely approach vectors weeks earlier. Slow, obvious, tempting. The wedge Valor had mocked was not bait, but it had drawn attention exactly where the humans wanted it. Behind it, staggered by light hours, were the real assets. Reserve squadrons riding cold trajectories. Logistics ships masked as civilian. Haulers. Heavy platforms parked just outside standard sensor bands, drifting for days to bleed heat and noise. They mapped our response, Valor said slowly. Every doctrine branch. Yes, the sensor mind replied. Human predictive. Models show 94% alignment with executed Council maneuvers. A standalone line flashed, merciless in its simplicity. They planned for us. The new arrivals took station with flawless spacing, locking into a lattice that closed escape corridors without firing a shot. Routes the Council fleet had believed open, now terminated in human mass and unblinking sensors. This is a coalition response, the human voice said, as if anticipating the thought, and not a reaction. More information followed, timestamps, internal Council communications intercepted and decoded, decision trees Valor recognized, his own recommendations, modeled and countered before he had even issued them. They knew when we would escalate, a delegate whispered. When we would hesitate. They knew because we are predictable, Valor replied. The humans had not rushed. They had waited for the Council to commit, to reveal formations, reserve positions, evacuation priorities. Every minute of energy, fire absorbed, had been another data harvest. New human ships activated emissions, command and control nodes, not weapons. The battle was already won. This phase was about containment. Range markers stabilized. No pursuit, no panic, just closure. A second standalone line appeared, colder than the first. The schedule was the weapon. The human transmission continued, now carrying quiet finality. Secondary fleets are in position, it said. Tertiary. Relief groups are standing by. Civilian evacuation remains on track. No additional Council assets are required to surrender. Valor watched as Council captains complied. Not all at once, but steadily. Power downs rippled through the formation. Weapons went cold. Escape pods launched, then halted as human guidance beacons redirected them towards safe lanes. They're letting them live, a strategist said. All of them. Yes, Valor answered. He understood the cruelty of that mercy now. Survival meant testimony. It meant memory. The hololith zoomed out, revealing the full scope of the human operation. A web spanning millions of kilometers, timed down to the second, activated without haste or fury. This had never been a duel. It had been an audit, and the Council had failed it before the first shot was fired, as the last decoy signature winked out. Its purpose complete, Valor felt the weight of inevitability settle fully at last. The humans had not trapped the fleet. They had trapped the future. Dominance was applied, not unleashed. High Executor Valor watched the human fleet move from containment to execution with the same calm precision that had defined every prior phase. No cheers, no acceleration spikes, just orders flowing through a network that did not need to raise its voice to be obeyed. Phase 8, the human transmission announced. Proceeding. The lattice tightened. Human ships adjusted positions. By kilometers, not meters, closing gaps the Council fleet had hoped were negotiable. Strike groups separated from the main formation, each assigned a sector, each already aligned with targets that had been marked long before Valor understood he was surrounded. The first coordinated strike rippled outward. Railgun fire did not come as a volley. It came as a sequence, one sector at a time. Each human group fired once, then shifted vectors, letting momentum and timing do the rest. Council ships died in clusters. Wing Kappa vanished under a converging crossfire. 12. Capital hulls reduced to debris in 9 seconds. 2 escort flotillas attempted to scatter and were intercepted by missile screens already occupying their escape lanes. Casualty counters ticked upward with obscene steadiness. 800 lost. 300.6, 100. A standalone line appeared on Valor's display, generated by the human battle net and mirrored across civilian feeds. This is control. The Council fleet attempted a final reorganization, a desperate consolidation meant to preserve whatever command authority remained. It failed before it finished. Forming human strike elements adjusted mid-burn, trajectories recalculated in real time as if uncertainty itself had been removed from the equation. Nuclear detonations followed, not city killers, but precision yields, timed to collapse formations without, radiating beyond designated volumes. Shockwaves overlapped, hulls crumpled, crews died without ever seeing the ships that ended them. They're cutting us apart by schedule, a delegate said, voice flat with shock. Every sector, every reserve. Yes, Valor replied, and they are stopping where resistance ends. He saw it then, the pattern beneath the destruction, where Council ships powered down, human. Fire ceased. Where escape pods launched and complied with guidance beacons, they were not targeted. Corridors remained open, narrow, controlled, unmistakably intentional. Loss update, Valor demanded. Council fleet operational capacity at 22%, the sensor mind replied. Disabled or destroyed vessels exceed 7,400. Engagement duration, 3 hours, 11 minutes. Human losses remained unchanged. The second wave moved. Human boarding craft launched in disciplined arcs, not toward wreckage, but toward intact ships that had gone cold. No ramming, no forced entry signatures. Docking clamps engaged with surgical restraint. Internal feeds, illicitly tapped by the Council's own failing systems, showed armored humans moving through corridors, weapons low, medics behind them. A second standalone line cut across the hololith dominance without hate. Valor's attention snapped back to the wider field as new alerts sounded. Beyond the primary engagement zone, secondary Council patrol fleets began to register losses. Ships vanishing as human reserve elements executed strikes along hyperlane choke points, system-wide cascades. Human forces have interdicted 3 adjacent sectors, the sensor mind reported. enemy reinforcement probability reduced to near zero. The battle was no longer local, it was structural. Valor understood the implication with bitter clarity. The humans were not just defeating fleets, they were collapsing the Council's ability to project power at all. Every loss echoed outward, supply chains broken, command hierarchies severed, worlds suddenly alone. A human transmission cut through again, addressed now to every remaining Council vessel. "Remaining combatants," the voice said. "You have 18 minutes to disengage and power down. Continued resistance will be met with proportional force." Proportional, Valor watched as compliance spread, not in panic, but in resignation. Ships powered down in ones and twos, then in waves. Weapons went cold. Crews transmitted surrender codes with trembling precision. The human fleet adjusted fire patterns accordingly, narrowing their focus to the last pockets of resistance. Each was dismantled with brief, merciless efficiency. At 3 hours, 29 minutes, the casualty counter froze. Total Council losses, 8,912 vessels, human losses. Zeroed, Valor let the numbers settle. There was no anger left in him now. Only the hollow understanding that this outcome had been locked in from the moment the humans had arrived on schedule. The human ships held position amid the wreckage, weapons quiet, rescue craft moving through debris fields already mapped for survival probability. Dominance had been established, not through rage, not through excess, but through design so complete that there was nothing left to oppose it. The war, at this scale, was finished. What followed would decide whether anything like the Council would ever rise again. Ash never came. High Executor Valor watched human rescue craft move through the debris fields with methodical care, their trajectories optimized not for speed, but for survival probability. Fires burned where ships had died, but no follow-up strikes descended to finish them. No scorched broadcasts, no victory salutes. Instead, there were docking requests. Human boarding teams entered disabled Council vessels with weapons powered down to low ready. Medics followed within seconds. Wounded crew were stabilized first, restrained second. Rank did not matter. Species did not matter. "You are prisoners," the human officers told them, voices calm, translated without distortion. "You will not be harmed. You will receive medical treatment. You will be fed." Valor listened to intercepted internal feeds with a hollow ache behind his eyes. This was not conquest as the Council understood it. This was something colder and far more dangerous. A formal transmission arrived, encoded for command-level recipients only. "Terms of cessation are attached," the human voice said. "They are non-negotiable." Valor opened the packet. No tribute demands, no territorial annexations, no population transfers, just law. All detained crews would be processed under human war statutes. Officers accused of enforcing forced conscription, biological processing, or extermination policy would stand trial. Evidence had already been compiled. Sentences would be public. Civilian worlds under Council authority were granted immediate autonomy. Human fleets would provide evacuation, food aid, and infrastructure stabilization for 18 destabilized sectors, effective immediately. A standalone line appeared on Valor's display, transmitted deliberately across neutral channels. Terms not. Ashes. The Council command net fractured within minutes. Regional governors transmitted declarations of neutrality, then allegiance. Some begged for protection. Others simply cut ties, unwilling to die for an authority that could no longer protect or intimidate them. Defection spread faster than panic ever had. 18 sectors have aligned with human legal frameworks, the Sensor Mind reported. Council authority reduced below quorum. Valor closed his eyes. The Council had ruled through inevitability, through fear of what happened if you refused. The humans had dismantled that illusion without ever threatening annihilation. A final transmission reached him directly, unencrypted. "High Executor Valor," the human voice said. "You will be taken into custody. You will be treated with dignity. You will stand trial." Valor did not resist. He powered down his command throne and waited as docking clamps engaged. As he was escorted from the bridge, he glimpsed the wider feeds one last time. Council worlds broadcasting surrender, not to save themselves, but to join something else, something structured, something restrained. The humans were not replacing the Council, they were making it unnecessary. Behind the scenes, evacuation numbers ticked upward. 12 million civilians relocated, then 15, then 20, moved through corridors that had once been tools of control and were now routes to safety. Valor understood then what truly frightened him. The humans were not ending the war with fire. They were ending it with legitimacy. And as the last Council banners went dark across the network, the shape of the galaxy shifted, not with an explosion, but with a signature change in who was allowed to decide the future. The ashes never fell. They were no longer required. The battlefield cooled, but the sensors did not. Human ships held position. Long after the last surrender codes were logged, their formation unchanged, their posture alert. Rescue operations continued. Trials were scheduled, supply corridors stabilized. The war, as defined by weapons fire, was complete. Then the long-range array chimed. It was a sound most of the bridge crews had never heard outside of simulations. A swore, priority alert from instruments that rarely spoke, because nothing ever entered their range. Contact, the sensor officer said. Outer rim vector, extreme distance. The display resolved slowly, data layers stacking one by one. Not a fleet, not yet. Just a pattern in background radiation, a distortion riding the edge of mapped space. Human analysts leaned in. No urgency, no surprise. Correlation? Fleet Command asked. Running now, the officer replied. The answer came back in seconds. Signature match probability, 87%, then 91%, then 96%. A standalone line appeared, stripped of commentary. Match found. The pattern aligned with something buried, deep in human archives. Records older than their first extrasolar colonies, older than the wars that had shaped their current doctrine. Faint, incomplete logs from an era when entire human systems had gone silent beyond the outer rim. Designation. Scrolled onto the display. Exterminator class, no known diplomacy markers. No communication protocols, just expansion vectors and consumption models that ended in extinction curves. Distance, Command asked. 4,000 light-years, the sensor officer said. Velocity suggests arrival window measured in decades. Silence followed, not the stunned silence of shock, but the quiet of professionals absorbing confirmation. So it's still out there, someone said. Yes, Fleet Command replied. And it's moving again. Orders flowed, calm and immediate. Exploration fleets flagged, deep-range probes launched, archives unlocked and cross-referenced. The battle timetable expanded, not hours now, but years. Outside the bridge, the galaxy was already changing. Council worlds reorganized under new law. Trade routes reopened, prisoners were processed, trials prepared. A war ended without ash. Human. Ships adjusted formation by a fraction of a degree, turning not toward conquered space, but toward the dark beyond it. The humans had finished one war exactly as planned. The next one had already been waiting.